Professor Tan Sri Shukri is one of the sought-after names in the field of higher education in Malaysia. An educationist and a prominent intellectual, Professor Shukri has been the driving force behind policymaking and education development in Malaysia. His passion for quality education and desire to create a strong synergy between public and private education institutions were some of the key factors that were recognized by the Malaysian government, assigning him to play a key role in several of the government committees on education. As a true philanthropist, Professor Shukri's commitment towards ensuring the less fortunate and financially challenged was recognized through a number of organizations. Today on Newsfirst in Focus, he shares his insight into education and much more. Well, education remains a fundamental right. Well, this in mind, Dr. C.W.W. Kandangara envisioned a country where all citizens will be entitled for this fundamental right. He envisioned a country where everyone will be able to reap the benefits and the provisions of free education, which we all enjoy in Sri Lanka, one of the developing nations of the entire world. Well, in this in mind, how much of a bigger deal is this free education system in the country, and how much of an advantage are we at, and how much are we taking the full advantage of this education system? Well, we will be discussing that extensively today on Newsfirst in Focus, and today on the show we've got a very prominent personality who has been an educationist for over 35 years, and he is the founder and president of one of the biggest private universities in Malaysia. Well, I've got with me today Professor Mohammed Shukri Yajid, whom I will be addressing as Professor Shukri throughout the interview today. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, free education. Sri Lanka is blessed with free education, one of the developing countries that is thriving because of free education. But there are stumbling blocks that we face every day, day in and day out. The budget allocation is not enough. People say that it should give at least 5% of the GDP. Well, how much of a bigger role should education play when it comes to giving prominence to the education system of the country?
I think let me begin by saying that I've been coming to Sri Lanka for the last 12 to 15 years. I've seen the development of the country for the last 12 to 15 years, and I think there is no doubt that here in Sri Lanka you have a very strong and good fundamental of education system, which is, when I look in terms of overall, very much similar in Malaysia, because we have the same tradition of inherited from Britain, United Kingdom before. And one of the important pillars that we have been developed here is the free education. And to me, it is something great, the fundamental that we have. The only thing that we have to move beyond that, because the challenges for the future generation is different from our generations. And I think from that perspective, the education system have and must reflect that challenges.
So Sri Lanka is one of those countries that are struggling when it comes to being contemporary, especially when it comes to the education system. Our syllabus seems outdated, people complain about it, citizens complain about it, despite the fact that this is all being given free. How contemporary should education be, especially given this time and age where technology is growing and world is progressing day in and day out?
I think as I said earlier, the fundamental is there. The fundamental of good and excellent education system is here in Sri Lanka. Otherwise, I'm not here. But I think, as I said, we have to move forward, and the way of moving forward is by looking into new set of skills. For example, we are talking about preparing students and preparing graduate for 21st century learnings, and this is the thing that the university and also the school system must reflect of the learning for 21st century learning, which is we are talking about, most people are talking about the 4C components of creating a student, developing a graduates of holistic, well-rounded graduate to face for the future challenges. Like for example, you need a new skill, new set of skill. The future graduate must have a collaborative skill. You must have a good communication skill. Not enough to have only one language. Like for example, here in Sinhalese, you must also be able to take English as a second language and can compete globally. In the same manner, we must also prepare them to be creative, have creative thinking, have critical thinking, to look into the new solution, looking into way beyond your borders. And I think from that perspective, I always believe education in any country is the best mobility factors. If we want to move ourselves, we want to move our family, we want to move our country and our nation, we must invest in education with the right pillars and system. So this is the thing that I think we must be looking forward. Fundamental and foundation is there here. The only thing that we have to move forward.
Well, you're the president and the founder of one of the biggest universities, private universities in Malaysia, but as an intellectual, as an educationist who has been in the field for over 35 years, what do you think about regulations around private institutions by the government? How stringent should it be when it comes to regulations and rules, and how much of a role should the government play when it comes to making its regulations designed for private education?
I think we have to look into the wholesomeness of the system and policy, of the system and public policies. From that perspective, it is. I'm not talking from the point of public or privates. I think the world, what is needed in the world today is the partnership of between public and privates. I don't think that public alone can do the job because of the constraint of budgets and also the constraint of culture and way we do things. And in the same manner, private alone cannot do that task also. And I think the way forward that I can see it, during my traveling all over the world, we do the benchmarking with many universities, like for example at MSU, Management and Science University, we do a lot of benchmarking with the top university in the world, because we would like to make sure that the partnership and the system will give the benefits to the students, graduates, and also for the country. So I think from my perspective, it's always about partnership, public and private, for the betterment of the nation, to uplift and move the nation to the next level.
Well, private education, especially in Sri Lanka, has come under a lot of fire throughout the years, where you see protests taking place by students opposing the whole idea of private institutions and private education, especially given that it's the same way that they've grappled with throughout their years, because it's the same education that they receive, but private education gives the same degree but in a different level altogether. So this has come under a lot of fire, especially in Sri Lanka. But my question to you is, how do you tackle this issue of division, the division between public and private institutions, especially the division that you see within society when it comes to public and private education?
As I said earlier, it is very much about public and private partnership. So I think that concept must be embedded in the education system. It's not about the dichotomy of public or private. It is public and private. That's number one. Number two, we must also look into the output of education. What do we want? And I'm sure one of those things that we must agree together is to giving access to education. And I'm sure this is the thing that have been done in Sri Lanka successfully, because it is free education. But now we have to move forward beyond free education, because we're also looking, as I said just now, about 21st century learnings. We're also looking about the new soft skill needed for the graduate and for the student, and we must be thinking about how our program, our curriculum can be revamped to make sure that the industry embedded program become one of the pillars. This is what we do at our university. We're always looking into quality program. We're looking into the best services that we can give to our students and make sure that they become well-rounded graduate with industry embedded program and maintain the entrepreneurship mindset in their mind. With that perspective, I've seen that, I can only say about our university, Management Science University, we be the #1 employable university in Malaysia because of that. Our employment rate within 6 months of graduation is 98.6% because of the soft skill that they have, because the emphasis that we put in our curriculum, because we design with industry embedded program and push them not to be Malaysian but to be global graduates. And I think here also in Sri Lanka, you have to be moving by putting that perspective, and your graduate become a global graduates, not just for industry here, and needed and be able to work within the industry perspective.
Well, I'm in conversation with Professor Shukri, an educationist and an intellectual, on this first in focus. Well, human resources and how Sri Lanka has tapped into human resources. All the answers will come back when we meet again after this short commercial break. Welcome back. You are watching this First in Focus, and I am in conversation with Professor Shukri, who is an educationist and intellectual, and he's one of the presidents and the founders of one of the biggest private universities in Malaysia. Professor Shukri, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, before the break, I spoke about human resources and how Sri Lanka has not yet tapped into human resources. We have the perfect location, we have one of the strategic air routes and ports, and we've also have the beauty of the country that still has not been used to do business. How do you think Sri Lanka can tackle this issue in connecting and bridging this gap between academia and industry?
I think I fully agree with you that Sri Lanka has a great potential. As I said, I've been here many times, many years, and I think the way forward for Sri Lanka is to make sure that they can develop full-blown of their human capital. They have a very good human capital in the country, but they need to be nurtured with the right development. And I'm sure that with that perspective, Sri Lanka can move on to be a great nation, great country, and great human capital. And from that perspective, that's the reason also we at the University, Management Science University in Malaysia, we have our learning center here. We develop our learning center here because our perspective is how we can assist and use our experiences to nurture and develop human capital, particularly to make sure that they are in line and be prepared for global perspective. And from our perspective, university perspective point of view, we do GMP, we call it Global Mobility Programs. We do a lot of global leadership programs because we want to tap and nurture human capital. And at the same manner, we make sure that they have the right mindset for 21st century learning, meaning to say good communication in English, make sure they have an entrepreneurial mindset. And in the same manner, we must make sure they are industry embedded program linked for the future. When we look into the future, it is about connectivity. IT is the main thing for the future. And with that, I think you must make sure that the country prepare themselves with a new and different platform of learning environment. For example, I can see that now all over the world, we have the new things like flexible education. We have MOOC, Massive Open Online Courses. We have BOOC, Blended Open Online Courses. These the thing can really spur and develop the nation building in Sri Lanka, and that is the future.
Well, you see a lot of skepticism when it comes to online learning in most people, especially in traditional countries who believe in traditional and cultural kind of education or education system that's based on traditional values. But do you think online learning is for Sri Lanka at this point of time?
I think we must look into the process and content. I always believe we shouldn't be looking inward by not agreeing with the platform. Shouldn't blame the platform. But as far as I'm concerned, if we instill and install the right quality process, any learning can be done in the right manner. So quality is the key issues. Process, the way you're going to do it. And to me, if we have the right quality process and learning process and work within that, online education and blended online approach can assist. We're not going to be, as I said just now, I'm a strong believer of partnership. I always see that education is always about partnership. Education is about collaboration. If we can have all the platforms for our people, why not? Because at the end of the day, we want to move them, to upgrade them to the next level, to prepare themselves to the global world, global market.
Well, Professor Shukri, tell us more about you and how did you become an educationist, a professional, and what really made you draw close to the education system of the country, and what really triggered that sense in you?
Wow, you remind me of my younger days. I think I've been in education for the last 35 years, and I always love education. Education is my DNA, my passion for education. I think soon after graduated from the university, I set my mind to build and develop education system and to assist the country whenever they are to make sure that we can prepare for human capital. Because one of those things about education, be educationists, we have the sense of satisfaction when we look into the success of our student, our graduate, and I think that cannot be replaced with any other gain materially. And I think when you love education, you believe in it, you would like to see the transforming life of your student. You can see they move from, like for example, when I came here yesterday, for example, I've been to the hotel, I met our graduates. I come here also, I meet our students. So I'm proud of them because they success in their career. That's what we call transformative. That's what we call giving access and opportunity for them to move up in their ladder of their career and be success. That is education. It's all about bringing changes, about transform a person to make sure that they can be a better person and contribute to themselves, family, community, and their country. So I think that is very important to me. I love that. I love doing it for the last 35 years.
That's amazing. Well, there is a huge confusion in between transforming and conversion of education information into skills.
Okay.
There's a huge stumbling block, especially the conversion doesn't really take place soon after you get out of school or your higher education or your universities. It's a struggle to transform, to convert that, the information that you've got, the knowledge you've got, into skills. How do you think the education system be designed in order to facilitate this process?
I think what you say is very much about 21st century learning. I think it's not enough to be success, to be good academically. I think for the future, you must make sure that you have the combination of knowledge gain academically with the right personal enrichment competencies, the right skills needed, and from there you combine with the real life environment, then you are moving into what I keep saying, that producing holistic, well-rounded graduate. That should be the education for the future. It's not just about excellent in academic, but cannot engage with anything apart from academic. You must have your soft skill component, your personal enrichment competency. That's why in our university, for example, we have these three combination of good academic curriculum and content, which is always updated with the relevant industries, with industry embedded program into it, but we also blend with the right skill. We call it personal enrichment competencies in our university, PEC. And the same manner, we blend also with GEMS, graduate employability skill. These three components match, push, and deliver across university, across curriculum, regardless of their program. Like for example, in our university, we have more than 150 programs, from medical program, pharmacy program, to hospitality, culinary art, computing engineering, engineer, and so on and so forth. But everybody has to go through the same process, because the objective is about well-rounded graduates.
Well, I'm in conversation with Professor Shukri. You are watching Newsfirst in Focus. We'll go into a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more on Newsfirst in Focus. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You are watching Newsfirst in Focus. Well, the government this time around, through its budget 2017, had given a lot of provisions in order to facilitate businesses and establishing of businesses here in the country. You've been in and out of the country. How easy it is to really set up a business here in the country? How is it when it comes to regulations? How do you work around it?
I think from my experience here, we must you have the right, as I keep saying, the platform is there, the process is there. Probably what need to look at is how the work process for business to set up here in Sri Lanka can be simplified to make it easier. Then from there you will allow the culture of entrepreneurship exist and grow in the industry. Because when we look in any economies, the most important thing is to create a culture of entrepreneurship, of SME, small medium enterprise, and give them the right opportunity and the right skill. I think if you push the system and also the process, make it easier for them, I'm sure Sri Lanka can flourish as a very good hub for business and also good hub for education. When I look around in terms of infrastructures, for example, you have everything. Port is getting there, road is coming up, airport is there, under progress, although it's closed for the next 2 months for daytime flight. But overall, the perspective is right. The only thing that we have to look into the work process and nurture and develop the right segments. And I'm sure with that also, the university and higher learning institution like management and science university can play a role, because we can provide the right training and right set and right skill for the businesses. And at the same manner, we also can give them the right environment to push them to the new set of entrepreneurial mindset. We at MSU, we are proud because we are voted last year, for example, the best entrepreneurial university in Malaysia. And then because we support the type of thing that I said, we incubate the entrepreneurs. So I think this is probably the thing that need to be looked at again here. The government have done a lot. The only thing that to make it better and do the better process.
A lot of things have changed now. Nothing is like it was years ago, especially when it comes to setting up a business, setting up a university. You don't need a physical building, a physical structure anymore. You can do it online. You can do it virtually. But how much of a reach do you think there is in the world, especially in the Asian countries, South Asian countries, when it comes to virtual learning and online learning?
I think as a region, to me, we have a great potentials. Like for example here, Sri Lanka, ASEAN, if we combine the region, we are talking about more than 1 billion peoples. So we have the biggest asset of any country to move on to be the great countries. We have the human capitals. The challenge is how to transform our human capital to unleash their potential and to work to move for a greater nation. And I think from that perspective, online education have a role to play. Online education have a role to play, And with that perspective, I must say that what need to be done is the partnership, private and public, and what need to be done is the quality process. We must install the regulation of quality.
So for how long have you been involved in doing business with Sri Lanka?
I think for the last 10 years.
And do you see any changes
yes,
happening over
definitely,
the 10 years?
definitely. Otherwise, I'm not be here, Stephanie. I can see a great potential. I can see a future of great nation. I met good people, right people, great people here of Sri Lanka. I think you have all what it takes to be a great country.
And what do you imagine Sri Lanka to be in the next over the next 5 years?
The next 5 years, I can be of assistance to Sri Lanka is by creating Sri Lanka become the best education hub, best entrepreneurial hub, complement what we do in Malaysia. And I'm very happy if management and science university, which we have our center here, to be part and partners of that process.
So Sri Lanka has a future when it comes to education and
Definitely.
of being an educational hub.
Definitely.
At least even beyond our imagination, beyond the challenges that we are facing right now.
Definitely, provided we are willing to change. One of those things that I keep saying to even my student in the university, the two things that you must have in your life, in your country, changeability. You must be able to changeability. And number two is learnability, ability to learn. If here you have that combination of changeability attitude and learnability attitude, combine that, I can foresee the great future here.
Well, with that note, we have come to the end of BizFirst in Focus. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you with us on BizFirst in Focus. Thank you for joining us as well. Next week, we'll have another guest on BizFirst in Focus. We are here to give you insight into how we can grow and make progress in the world. So stay tuned. Until we meet again, this is Stephanie Lazarus signing off.